Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And my name's Jeff.
And we're going to answer your questions today. But first, I have a question for you, Jeff.
Yeah?
How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good?
I'm always trying really hard not to screw with you when you're doing the opening lines. Every time I'm like, what can I do? What can I do to mess with them?
I mean, you can. If it turns out bad, we can always just re-record it.
Sure. But maybe that's what stops me, because I know you could just edit it out.
Jeff, I could edit you out. No, I really couldn't. I don't mean to imply that. You are a very valued asset on the team.
Oh.
I very much appreciate your participation.
Oh, please.
Oh, goodness. Okay. You want to just go ahead and get into the episode?
Sure, let's go.
Okay. Well, before we go on, I want to set the stage a little bit.
Okay.
So you're going through a dungeon.
Again?
Okay. Yes, again.
All right.
I'm not going to have you roll any dice this time.
Okay,
but
good.
You're going through a dungeon, and you hold up your torch. You see shadows scatter away from you as you lift up the torch, and you come up on a giant stone door.
Ooh.
And you can tell that there's runes carved into the door, but not just runes. There's writing in a language that you speak. It's in Sylvan. I'll say you speak Sylvan. So
okay. Yeah.
You see something written in Sylvan.
Sure.
And it appears to be a riddle.
Uh-huh.
Maybe you know the answer to this riddle. Maybe you don't.
Okay. I'm going to read it.
The riddle says, "What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs in the afternoon, and 3 legs in the evening?"
I feel like I've heard this one.
You probably have. It's like one of the most common riddles ever.
I honestly, I can't remember the answer to it.
Well, the answer is a dragon with back problems. See, it gets up in the morning and its back hurts because it was sleeping too long. Like happens to all of us, am I right? And then it walks around on 2 legs for a while, but then its back starts to hurt, so it takes out that cane and it walks around on its cane.
Okay,
but
it's a morning is the beginning of someone's life, and
yes.
the night is.
No,
okay.
it's a dragon's life.
Oh, sorry.
Specifically a dragon. The reason being, you just stumbled upon the dragon's hoard.
Although it makes me think, dragons can polymorph. So in the morning he gets up, he's on all 4s.
You make a good point.
In the middle of the day he turns into a humanoid and goes and mingles with the townspeople.
Yeah.
And then at night, are there any creatures with 3 legs?
Well, someone could make a very vulgar joke here. However, we are a family podcast.
Oh, sure.
A family of role players.
There's the ethereal Flitcher that has 1 leg.
Yes, it does. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it has
one
leg and two arms with really big fingers, I think.
Are they big finger? Or I thought it has 4 arms.
Maybe it does have 4
weird.
arms. I don't remember.
Such a weird creature.
It really is.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry.
For a second, I thought you were referencing the ethereal marauder, which is like a 2-legged blue dog with a triangle-shaped mouth.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
All the ethereal things.
What the crap is all of this? What crap? Anyway, but you're in the dragon's hoard.
Okay.
So we have
not on the ethereal plane. Sorry.
Correct. So we have a magic item here. And this was submitted by Justin from Crit Academy. This item is the Lyre of Helm. Lyre, of course, being the stringed instrument, sort of like a harp, but
Gotcha.
like a little harp thing. Yeah, I'm doing the motions with my hands, and nobody can see it. That was more like air. It was air lyre, is what I was. He
was
playing.
doing air lyre.
Now, so this item is carved from a 1,000-year-old orchard tree at the center of a temple dedicated to Helm, the Faerun deity of protection. Carved into its beautiful dark burgundy chassis is a staring eye on an upright gauntlet, which is the symbol of Helm, finished off with golden strings. With this item, you can use an action to play a soothing hymn to the protector Helm. Its rich music bolsters an ally with Helm's protection. The target gains 1d4 plus 2 temporary hit points for 1 hour. And the item, I'm guessing that uses up 1 charge, and the item gains 1d4 plus 1 charges at dawn. So it's a pretty simple item. It's an instrument that when you play it gives you temporary hit points. You can do that a certain number of times per day. I think just the idea of a magic item being dedicated to a deity is kind of cool.
Yeah. It seems pretty, like, I don't know, pretty
in keeping with what that deity would do.
Yeah, sure. And I like that it's made out of a 1,000-year-old orchard tree. That's really cool. That I like describing it that way. Like makes it really unique, and like because it's not that powerful of a magic item, but like its meaning is more than its like ability.
Definitely, yeah.
Like it means a lot more than the temporary hit points, but it's still a cool thing that you can do, and it's something that you can easily give to an early level, a low level like cleric or something.
Yeah.
Like the cleric of Helm, and they have this special lyre that they have, and they do a little tune every once in a while just to give themselves a little extra boost.
Or maybe you can give it to a party that has no particular connection to Helm. Maybe like the bard takes it and uses it, whatever. But then the Church of Helm starts trying to track them down because they have a stolen artifact.
Sure.
They didn't necessarily steal it, but that's still an important artifact to them, and they gotta find it.
Yeah, they'll end up at a Church of Helm or something, and like one of the guys, the priest there, will notice it and be like, "Where did you get that?" And it might start a whole adventure.
Now, I'm not super well versed in Helm in particular, or really most of the Faerun deities.
Same.
But I'm curious as to whether a lyre in particular is important to Helm. I like the idea, like in my own homebrew campaigns, I've gone and I've made my own deities, and then like each deity has like a signature weapon, which is kind of a common thing. If you look in like the Deities and Demigods book, there's signature weapons in there.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of one or more of them allegedly being the actual weapon that this god wielded when they walked the earth, or if they were like once a human that then ascended to godhood. I like the idea of a magic item that was like possibly owned by a deity.
Yeah.
And so if that's what this is, that would be really cool. It might have nothing to do with Helm whatsoever, but either way, that's something that it could be like, oh, Helm doesn't necessarily have anything to do with music. That's because people don't realize that Helm played a lyre when, 1,000 years ago.
Sure.
And he's the one that carved this lyre out of the tree or whatever.
Yeah, it was one of his hobbies.
Yes.
He liked to carve things from wood and play music.
Exactly.
Nobody really knew. It was a different side of him. Like he didn't like showing it off. He didn't think he was really good at it, but he was pretty good.
There you go. Yeah. See, we've come up with a whole mythos around Helm and his lyre.
I only know one other Faerun deity, and that's Am.
Okay.
I think it's Ahm is his name. Is how it's spelled?
Maybe
I'm thinking of. No, yeah, I think it's Am. Cause I just remember from like the Baldur's Gate games and the Neverwinter games. And stuff
gotcha.
Like that.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the main characters in Neverwinter Nights was like a paladin of Am or something like that.
In the first Neverwinter Nights, Arabeth was a paladin of Tyr.
Was it Tyr?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm thinking. Wait, Am is somebody. Maybe I was thinking of Tyr. It was a three-letter name.
Maybe, I don't know.
But is Am is something different? Maybe Shadows of Am. Maybe Am's an evil deity.
I don't know.
I don't know Faerun very well. Apparently,
if I recall, Faerun kind of has like every god in it, kind of like depending on which edition you're looking at. I feel like in 3rd edition there was like in the Forgotten Realms campaign setting book there was like page after page of deities in Faerun, and there was like even like Norse deities in there or something.
Yeah, they just kind of throw everything together because Faerun was kind of like that was the big. When you thought D&D, you were mostly thinking of like some Forgotten Realms stuff
for a while. I think so.
It felt because like any game that came out was based in Faerun, and like a lot of the novels you'll see.
The Drizzt series, of course.
That whole series is all Forgotten Realms. I mean, there's plenty like I think Planescape is the other one. Was it Planescape or?
There was Planescape. Yeah. Planescape. I've never read any Planescape novels, but
I've definitely seen them, and then there were some Eberron ones made too.
Yeah, I've read a couple of the Eberron ones. I remember like I think it was called like the Dreaming Dark trilogy. That it came out like right around the time Eberron came out. So I guess I think that'll do it for the Dragon's Hoard. I think this is a simple item, but a neat one, and definitely with plenty of potential.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of interesting depth to it.
Yeah.
More than just what you can use in a round, you know?
Right. Sorry, actually, one more thing about this item. I think maybe it would be interesting if you either gained additional temporary hit points if you were a worshiper of Helm.
Oh, sure.
Or maybe you didn't get any if you weren't. So you had to be a follower of Helm in order to make use of it.
Sure.
I remember reading a story a long time ago about a guy who was playing in a campaign where this one church came out with these healing potions that you only got a benefit from them if you worshipped their deity. So like anybody else drinking it did nothing. But if you worshipped their deity, you got healing. I'm like, that's a way to get followers.
Yeah, that's
this deity is going to save me from dying. Right. So, okay.
Right, exactly. Like, yeah, you have to go through a serious change in your beliefs to to receive the benefits. Yeah. So like you're in the middle of a battle and you're about to die and you only have this one potion that somebody gave you. And it's like it's got like a label, like the fine print on the label says, will only work if you believe in our deity. And like, crap. All right.
Yeah.
I believe. Dang it.
You take a little sip to see if it works.
It's like, crap, don't believe enough.
Yeah. Anyway, if anybody has any magic items they would like to submit for the Dragon's Hoard, or if they have any questions for us to discuss, how would they get those to us, Jeff?
They can send it to us in an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com.
That is correct.
They can also go to Reddit/r/interpartyconflict, post something there or respond to a post there.
Yeah, we're also on Facebook at facebook.com/interpartyconflict. You can message us there. You can post on there. You can reply to discussion questions I put on. Lots of ways to get hold of us.
What's it? Twitter handles at InPartyConflict?
At InPartyConflict, because InterPartyConflict is too many letters.
Oh, sure.
Twitter is goofy.
It's goofy. I wasn't sure if it was because like it was taken and I'm like, all right,
That would be weird.
I mean, a lot of things just get scooped up on Twitter because Twitter's such a big thing that like, it's kind of like owning a domain name. Like, I remember, listening to a story about the person who had @N, like the letter N.
Okay.
And like their something along the lines of their identity was stolen and held ransom, or their bank account or something of theirs was stolen and held ransom until they gave them that Twitter account.
Are you serious?
Handle.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was neat.
My mom, she passed away a couple years ago, but she was a doctor for many years, and she helped start this low-cost health clinic in downtown Detroit. And it's been a great thing. It's still there. She of course isn't part of it anymore, but I believe that clinic's website, somebody like snaked the domain name. Like they had the domain and then like it lapsed for a day, so like somebody else got it and then like tried to hold it ransom against them. I don't recall what they did. I think they might have ended up just making a new one or something. Sure, because they were going to give in.
That's such a sleazy thing to do, especially for something like that.
Yeah. But our listeners are not sleazy people.
Sure.
So they will contact us at InterPartyConflict on Twitter, or the other ways that we mentioned. Or we also have a PayPal donate button on our blog, which is InterPartyConflict.com. Yes. So yes, plugs all over. Whee! Everybody gets a plug. All right. So let's get into some questions.
Sure. Okay, our first question comes from Fingers Fate on Facebook, and they ask, as the DM, is it my responsibility to make sure characters are playing to the best of their ability, or should I let the other party members sort that out? Should I run combat encounters in a more forgiving manner, or play them to the side of realism?
Yeah, so a little bit of background on this. He told me that he feels like his players, they're not using all of their abilities. I believe he's running a 4th edition game. I could be wrong. And so when he's running a game, his players, they just kind of use the same abilities over and over. They don't really use all of their little utility things.
Yeah.
And so as a result, they're not playing to the best of their ability. So they're coming out kind of weaker and they're having more difficulty than they should be.
Sure.
So he's asking, should I be working harder to get them to use their abilities, or is that just up to them? And, that's a good question.
Yeah. The thing I see in this is, well, having not too long ago played some 4th edition where like you have your at-will abilities, which you can use every round if you want to. Yes. And then you have things like your encounter abilities and daily abilities.
Yeah.
And like, I'm a fairly experienced player, so I know that I should be using these abilities, but I don't know what's around the corner. So I feel like if I hang on to that encounter ability, or if I hang on to that daily ability, like I'll be able to use it later and when I really, really need it.
Yeah.
Even though I know right now I really need it.
You really need it, but do you really, really need it?
Exactly. So, and it's like that one, and I know you've talked about having these problems in video games and stuff when you have consumables and you just like you don't use them because if you use them, you won't have them, and then when you need them, you won't have them.
Right.
But the thing is like if like you're weighing the options, like okay, if I used it, would it have helped? Like so, it like what's worse than not using it is using it and then having it not help at all.
Exactly, and then you don't have it anymore.
Yeah, and then you just don't have it. So like one, it wasn't useful, and two, it's gone. Like so like having that internal fight can make it hard to use these abilities. And I mean, that's kind of the player's choice, and I feel like that is the player's responsibility to do that. Like the DM shouldn't have to, encourage that too much because you don't really want to push your players into doing something they don't want to do anyway.
Yeah, you don't want to micromanage your players.
Yeah.
And I don't think your players want you to micromanage them either.
Yeah. I mean, if it's new players, or even if it's a new campaign, and even with experienced players, they're just getting used to the characters and stuff like that. They might be trying it, or it's a new using a new edition or new system or something. If you have any knowledge in those abilities, you might remind them, hey, you could do this and do this, or help them understand what the abilities are, and that might encourage them to use it in the future.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think it should be left up to the player to play his or her character.
Yeah.
More work for the DM is just we don't want to make more work for the DM. So try not to worry about it too much, I guess.
Right. Because the DM has so many things he's already taken care of. Like if you're not using your own abilities and you die as a result, that's not his fault.
And then that's a lesson learned though. So
sure.
There'll be encounters where they don't use that ability and they almost get wiped, or somebody gets knocked to the floor or something like that. Like there have been times where I haven't used an ability and then the battle went really poorly and then I always use that ability.
Yeah.
I could have used that and now I'm going to use that every chance I get, which could, bite me in the butt later on because, I won't have it, but at least I know I tried,
Right. I remember when I was playing Ichi.
Golem. I forgot about that.
He was a barbarian, and in third edition, your rage lasted a certain number of rounds, and there were feats you could take to give you more of them per day to make it so they lasted longer and so on. And I had been debating whether to take the feat that makes your rage last longer. And there was this one encounter where my rage ended the battle. It was a really long encounter, and the rage ended. And the battle still went on. And so I spent the whole rest of the encounter fatigued, and it was awful. So I took that feat, and then I never needed it ever again. We never had an encounter that lasted that long ever again. So that's the other side of the coin.
Sure.
So then the question, should I run encounters in a more forgiving manner or play on the side of realism? That's of course, if you know that your players aren't using their abilities, well, should I dial back the enemies because the players aren't using their abilities, or should I just use the enemies to the best of what their ability should be and, use that as an incentive to get the players to use their abilities more?
Yeah.
I think that's probably the better choice.
Yeah. Because, if the idea is to encourage your players to use their abilities more, rather than saying, hey, you should use your abilities, you should make it so they kind of have to.
Yeah.
Because, they should be trying to get the most out of their characters. Because, what's the point of having that ability if you're never going to use it?
Yeah.
And if they're never going to use it, if you don't give them an excuse to use it, then, I don't know. I feel like you're doing them, a disservice to make it so they can breeze through it by just throwing out regular attack actions.
Sure. Yeah. Run your encounters as realistic as it should be. If the monsters are intelligent, have them use whatever tactics or whatever abilities that would be, fitting their intelligence and so on. And if it gets to be where the players are getting steamrolled because they're not using their abilities, if it gets that far, then you could point out, well, hey, you have this ability you could be using. You've got this other ability you could be using, and so on.
Yeah.
So go ahead and run the encounters. Don't try to make encounters that are going to be really difficult. but run them however difficult you think they should be.
Yeah.
And then if the players have difficulty, use that as the opportunity to be like, well, this is when you should use that ability. If it's a matter of they want to try to save it for later, they want to make a tea and cakes check, as I think we've talked about in the past.
Sure.
If we haven't talked about that, I apologize because I'm not going to explain it right now. So if your players are not using their abilities because they're afraid they might need them later, well, you can point out, okay, well, you won't make it till later if you don't use it now.
Sure.
And don't get me wrong. Like Jeff said, I fall victim to that in video games a lot. Yeah. So I understand it. But, somebody does need to point it out to them at some point that, this is the perfect opportunity.
Yeah. And things like video games, in a lot of cases when you're like fighting like bosses and stuff, there's not always an option to like run away.
Yeah.
D&D, I feel like people don't realize enough that you can run away.
Yeah.
Like failing is an option.
That's definitely true.
Failing is always an option in D&D, and that's not going to end the game. All your characters dying will end the game, but failing doesn't always include death.
Yeah.
Failure could just be, saying, no, you know what? I'm not going to fight this guy. I'm just going to leave the dungeon. We'll go do something else.
Yeah. And I would even say a good DM could find a way to turn a TPK into a segue into the next part of the campaign. Like it might require a detour. It might be that, suddenly the players come back to life, but they're like in a weird evil temple or something, or they're in the underworld,
or it's 12 years later, and the 12 years later, and the sun is gone.
Is that a reference to something?
I don't know.
Okay, no, that's a cool idea.
That's one of the master plans of the Mind Flayers is to cast the world in darkness and to destroy the sun. Like it's one of the more crazy ideas that they have. It's not it's not all of their goals. Like they don't all have that same goal.
Yeah,
they don't necessarily want to destroy the sun, but is it in Lords of Madness? Is that in Lords of Madness? There's one of the things that Mind Flayers dream about is casting the world in darkness. So it's like, well, what if they did that? What if they destroyed the sun and made the whole world like the Underdark? So
does that mean that Mind Flayers are the humans and humans are the Matrix?
What?
Because in the Matrix, the humans they darken the sun, they darken the sky because the machines need the sun, or they use the sun's power to survive.
They use the solar energy. Sure.
Huh. This is a big tangent, but I had a fan theory that I posted on Reddit and did not get a good response. My fan theory is that in the Matrix, whenever they they go into the Matrix and they have skills uploaded, the I know Kung Fu.
Sure.
bit.
Yeah.
My theory is that they're not actually getting any knowledge uploaded into their brains, because we never see them use any of those skills outside of the Matrix.
Sure.
Like the closest we ever see is, I believe in the third movie, there's a part where Neo is fighting, spoilers for the Matrix 2. Neo is fighting the guy that Agent Smith has possessed.
Uh-huh.
And neither of them seem to be very skilled in combat. It's basically just haymakers they're throwing around.
Yeah.
And despite the fact that I would assume that both of them, Neo especially, would know Kung Fu.
Sure.
So my idea is that they're not actually having the information uploaded. Rather, what's happening is they're getting what amounts to a cheat code.
Uh-huh.
Or they're leveling up their character, their avatar in the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
So while they're in the Matrix, it's not that Trinity... So when Trinity needs to operate a helicopter, specific helicopter, they upload that information, but she doesn't actually know how to operate that helicopter. But the Matrix knows, okay, this character knows how to operate this, therefore it's going to do what she wants it to do.
Yeah. It's it's tricking the Matrix into thinking they know how to do it, so it just lets them do it.
Exactly. And I don't know. Some people responded with some issue with that.
Well,
which I guess
you posted it on Reddit, so
I know. But anyway, I thought that was an interesting way to think of it.
Spoilers to Matrix 2.
Right.
No one's going to watch Matrix 2.
They shouldn't.
No.
They shouldn't watch it.
It's so silly. Oh, the sequels are so silly.
Yes. So what were we talking about?
I don't remember.
Something about 4th edition? I don't know. Let's go on to the next
Use your consumables.
Yes. Use your consumables.
You should use them.
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, because mind flayers and then darkening the sun.
I'm sorry.
And okay, no, that's fine. But that would be an interesting segue for if the players died and then like they wake up and something is fundamentally different about the world. I'm going to go on another tangent here. I'll try to make this one even quicker. There is a sci-fi / horror movie, I guess more sci-fi, called The Quiet Earth. It's like a New Zealand or Australian movie that came out like maybe 30 years ago. It's like an old movie.
Okay.
But
hey, not that old.
Sorry. But this movie, the movie starts off, this guy, he's like a scientist or something. He wakes up one day and he's going about his business. He like turns on the radio. Nothing comes on the radio. He, makes himself breakfast. He gets in his car, starts driving to work. And there's like nobody on the roads. And he sees like there's like cars like crashed on the sides of the roads. He gets to work and there's nobody there. He drives around the city and there's nobody there. There is nobody anywhere. As far as he knows, he is the last person in the world. Like it's just him. There's like cars crashed everywhere. There's like people's clothes lying on the ground.
He goes to the library and he's like, at least I have these books. And then his glasses fall to the ground and break. And he's like, no, there was time now.
Yes. Well, he eventually finds after like there's a big period in the movie where he like starts going crazy because it's just him. He like sets up mannequins and like gives like speeches to the mannequins and so on. He eventually
like you do.
He meets two other people and the three of them talk and they basically figure out that because he's a scientist, he knows that the facility he was working at they were performing some sort of an experiment that was going to like test some, I don't know, vibration in the atoms that make up the universe or something.
Okay.
They were going to do some experiment and it would have happened like last night. And then talking to these two other people, they realized that all three of them died at exactly that time. The main character committed suicide because he was so depressed, but he like forgot. I guess he like blocked it out of his memory or something.
Sure.
He meets a woman who was like, she was like taking a bath or something, like drying her hair, and she accidentally dropped the hairdryer into the water. And then the other guy was like in a fight with somebody, and the guy he was fighting drowned him in a river right at the time this experiment happened. And for whatever happened with this experiment, like destroyed everybody. And he realizes that like the machines that did that experiment are set to do it again sometime soon. And so they're trying to fix it. Basically, at the end of the movie, he realizes he's not able to stop it. So instead, he just crashes a tanker into the building right as it's happening, hoping to stop it. And then the last shot of the movie is him waking up on this beach where there's like these like giant mushrooms everywhere or something.
What?
Maybe I'm remembering this wrong because it's been a long time since I've seen this. But like
you're thinking of two completely different movies.
But he wakes up basically on a completely different world.
Sure.
And anyway, that's what that made me think of. We should just make this the tangent episode.
Yeah.
And then I can talk about what are some more tangents like I'm joking.
Well, when you put me on the spot like that, I can't do anything but read the next question.
Yes.
Next question comes from Jarl of Rum on Reddit, and they ask, as a player, how do I discourage another player from hogging the spotlight constantly, but do so with tact? That's tricky because, like, as a player to another player, one that's hogging the spotlight, that's probably not something you want to, like, definitely don't want to bring it up in the middle of the session.
Definitely, yeah.
Usually things like this, you don't want to do that in like at the game table.
Well, so I would say this is one of the few cases where it's probably best to not even talk to that person.
Like even after the session.
Even after the session, I would say don't talk directly to the other player. I would say, and feel free to disagree with me on this.
Sure.
I would say talk to the DM. Tell the DM, hey, I feel like this player is kind of hogging the spotlight. And then, because it's not just that player. If one person's hogging the spotlight, because we've talked about hogging the spotlight on previous episodes, it's not just that player. It is also, to an extent, the DM. There's a lot the DM should be doing to not necessarily discourage players from hogging the spotlight, but not playing into it.
Yeah, because somebody who's hogging the spotlight doesn't necessarily know that they're doing it, or they're not doing it they're not meaning to hog it. They're just playing the game.
Yeah.
And then, they just can do role playing a little bit better or something. So like they don't necessarily mean to do it. And it's not, like the DM shouldn't discourage that or anything, but I mean, like the DM can definitely do some work to kind of, encourage other people to participate.
So like a DM shouldn't discourage the person who's participating actively in the game. He should just try to get the other players as equally involved in the game as possible.
And we definitely talk about this, and that is hard to do.
It is.
Because like some people just can't do that. Like, I have troubles with social things in general, but I mean, like role playing is definitely not one of my strong suits. So like it's not always the easiest thing for the DM to do.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, like, between as a player, like I've definitely played with people who are, not necessarily like spotlight hogs, but they definitely are
they use the spotlight.
Yeah, they use the spotlight and they use it well.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, Chris. But like I'm saying, like I don't think Chris hogs the spotlight. He just knows how to play the spotlight.
Yes. He's always got a plan for something, and he makes good use out of it.
Yeah.
But he is in the spotlight.
And I've never thought like, man, he needs to stop, hogging the spotlight. I've always thought, man, I wish I could be that good.
Yes.
So I mean, like, so that could just be talking to the DM and being like, hey, you mind, throwing some spotlight my way, basically. Like, and the DM could just be like, could just take everything into turns almost and being like, hey, what do you want to do? What does your character think? What is your character thinking in this moment?
Yeah.
And then if you do that enough, it could, the group could get used to it. And like that person who normally will just go and take advantage of the spotlight might, be more likely to kind of stop and think and like, and check and see what everybody else is thinking.
Sure.
So if make it a habit.
Yeah. The reason that I say you shouldn't, I don't think you should talk directly to the player in question is that I feel like if you do that, then it's kind of like you're telling that player how they should be playing the game.
Sure.
And I don't think that that's an attitude anybody should have.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes, they are doing something that is negatively impacting your enjoyment of the game. But again, it's not, I don't think it's what they're doing. I think it is how the DM is reacting to what they're doing. A little thing that this makes me think of. When I was in high school, I did a lot of theater. And the first play I was ever in was, it was My Fair Lady. And I actually had a pretty big role because that year, all of the seniors, the play was going to be going on like right after spring break. So all of seniors would have to be at school during spring break to rehearse. And so they were like, oh, well, screw that. So all the players were out. So that meant all the juniors and sophomores could, that would be their chance to get in there. So it was my first play. I had a pretty big role. And I remember there being a point where, because I'd never been in a play before, I said to one of the other actors, like, oh, why don't you try doing it this way? And the director, I would say very tactfully, took me aside afterwards. And he was like, by the way, never do that. He wasn't saying like, he wasn't mad at me. He was just giving me a tip. Like, it is impolite. It is bad form to try and give tips to another actor.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially like in front of everybody. I definitely own up to that gaffe.
Yeah. He's definitely giving you some friendly advice sort of thing. Which,
but so similarly, you don't want to, his way of playing the game isn't necessarily any more or less valid than your way of playing the game. So if you're telling him, hey, you're hogging the spotlight, that's like you're telling him that your way of playing the game is different.
Sure.
And so again, I think you should talk to the DM, and then the DM should find a way to get everybody on an equal playing field.
Yeah. Yeah. In most cases, this is somebody who, the person hogging the spotlight isn't necessarily doing it on purpose, or, they don't even realize they're doing it.
Yeah. I would say most people that hog the spotlight, they're just the kind of person that's used to being the center of attention, or used to being the one that is there to make decisions and so on.
So in that case, it's not necessarily it's not their problem. It's, they're just playing the game. So this is something that, it is between you and the game and the DM. So like this is something you can discuss with the DM. On the other hand, there are people who do hog the spotlight on purpose.
Yeah.
And that's the way they've always been, and they're just always going to talk over everybody and take charge of the game. And in that case, that's partly a problem with them, and then that falls into the problem player category, which we've talked about before.
Yeah.
And again, that's another talk to the DM, and then the DM can then, kind of delegate with the rest of the group. Like they can talk to the problem player, or they can talk with other people and see if they're having a problem with it. And if it is impacting everybody's game time, then something can be done from there. Our next question comes from Fingers Fate on Facebook, and they ask, when creating a puzzle or a riddle for the players, should I always have a backup ready in case they can't solve the puzzle, or should I offer tips until they do?
Yeah. So, see, puzzles are tough because, and actually, sorry, before I go any further, let me just mention Crit Academy. As of this recording, Crit Academy, a couple of their most recent episodes were all about puzzles, and I listened to them while I was at work the other day, and I got a lot of really good tips about puzzles. Like I kind of want to use puzzles now.
Sure.
Hence the the Dragon's Horde intro today.
Oh.
But so yeah, if anybody wants tips on creating puzzles and also like getting puzzles across your players and everything, go check out Crit Academy. Anyway, so it's tough to make a puzzle that is balanced, because a lot of puzzles, if they're going to be reliant on the player's knowledge rather than the character's knowledge, which I would say most puzzles are, then a lot of the time it's either something that you either know it or you don't.
Right. Yeah. Like, you mentioned like the riddle you gave me earlier. It's like that is something I've definitely heard before. I couldn't quite remember the answer to it, but like maybe I haven't heard of that before. And I would just never be able to answer it.
Yeah. So if the players don't know the answer to a puzzle or a riddle, then the game can and probably will come to a grinding halt, which is, that's like nobody wants that.
Right.
So it can be tricky. So I would say, if possible, if you have like a backup puzzle, if that's a thing, if there's a way to incorporate that, then absolutely have one in mind. Now, you might maybe, if you're going to have a backup puzzle, if the backup puzzle is going to be like easier, then I would say maybe make it so that your backup puzzle is easier, but if the players do the backup puzzle, then they have an additional challenge that they wouldn't have had if they did the first puzzle.
Right. So it's like the puzzle could be to get through a door. Like you have to solve the puzzle to get through the door, and that leads you straight to the treasure.
Yes.
Whereas you could find the key to another door, but that, which would be a little bit easier, but that door, there's some monsters behind it you have to fight first.
Exactly. Yeah. Kind of like in the movie Labyrinth, there's a point early on where the main character, she can like choose one of two directions, and she is told not to choose this one because that would be dangerous. So she chooses the other one. And then the watcher, the viewer, finds out that, that first choice would have taken her straight to the bad guy. And instead she has to go through the whole labyrinth.
It's dangerous because it was...
Exactly, yeah.
It was David Bowie.
Yes. And another tangent that this makes me think of is Chicago is about 4 or 5 hours from where we are currently recording. And whenever I was a kid and we would drive to Chicago, we would always take the toll road, like the Skyway.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, I think somebody told me that the reason we take the toll road, it costs money, but that's because it's a lot more direct. Like, it's a lot faster to get where we're going because we're taking the toll road. And then if we didn't take the toll road, it would take a lot longer to get there. And that made perfect sense to me. And then I started driving on my own and found out that no, the toll road takes the same amount of time to get to where we were always going as if we. So I never take the toll road anymore because.
I mean, it might depend on traffic, but
I guess.
But yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So if you can have a backup puzzle, that would be cool. If not, if you don't have a backup puzzle, then try and keep in mind ways that you can incorporate some sort of skill checks or something into the game. Maybe you'll have it be that, like if a player if they're trained in, proficient in like history, then maybe you can have the player make a history check. And if they make it, give them a hint that might lead to the answer.
Yeah. Yeah. Having multiple ways to solve the same puzzle is always good, just because, someone might just not be good at logic puzzles, or even their character might not have, a good history skill or something like that. So having as many different ways to get around your puzzle and being able to anticipate ways that your players might come up with
Yeah.
Like maybe that barbarian really just wants to try and smash that door down.
Sure.
Like you might have developed this really cool and unique puzzle for getting that door open, but you know, definitely be okay with that barbarian, you know, rolling a 20 on a strength check and, you know, being able to at least break it enough to get through.
Cross no like keys shaped like chess pieces. Cross smash.
So
I'm looking at you, Resident Evil. What you're saying, actually, the Jeff, is actually, I would say, true about most challenges in a game. If there's any challenge that only has one solution, it's probably not a good challenge.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely not. It's not going to be as fun.
Yeah,
because you want your players to have the freedom. Like, I definitely always think of, like, you know, just barriers and stuff that you just can't get through because the game doesn't want you to go there yet.
Sure.
It's like, well, why can't I find a way around it? Why can't I get there? So it's like, oh, it's because you don't have the right puzzle piece or whatever.
Right.
You got to go get the red key. You have the green key. You need the red key. Shoot.
Yeah, so I think puzzles can be really, really cool. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you're concerned that your players might not be able to get past one, make sure that you have some sort of an alternate way around or whatever. But if you're gonna give an alternate way around that's easier, come up with some sort of an additional challenge so that it's not, you know, the obvious, oh well, let's just go with the easier way.
Right, you know? Yeah. You want them to weigh their options.
Right.
You know, stay here and try to figure this out or go down the dark, scary tunnel.
Yeah. One thing that this makes me think of is, and this is much more on topic than my other tangents today. There is, I want to say I've mentioned this on a previous episode. I can't remember, but there was this series of adventures in Dungeon Magazine a long time ago called The Challenge of Champions. Mm. The idea was that there was the adventure was this like circus or whatever, some sort of like a big exhibition comes to town where there's a big obstacle course divided up into various challenge rooms that a party, they sign up to go through these challenge rooms. Each challenge has one solution, but in a lot of cases there were like alternate ways the players could do it. And then it was an adventure that you could throw at your players that was almost entirely puzzles and riddles. So there were some things that would be skill-based or roles-based, but for the most part, a high-level party would have just as hard of a time as a low-level party.
Sure.
And then so you would go through and like there would be other groups of adventurers that were also going through it. So at the end, depending on how long it took you, you would get like a different reward or something. If you were like the fastest of all the groups, you got the best reward. And if your time was, you know, a little bit less, you would get a less good reward and so on. And these were really, really cool adventures because they always, you know, they required you to think outside the box and so on. Mm-hmm. And in these, I want to say there was usually a mechanic in place where if the players just couldn't figure something out, you could give them a hint, but to do so would like add time onto their time.
Sure.
So if they used all of the hints, they would probably get a bad prize at the end because they would have more time than everybody else.
Sure, yeah.
But those were really fun because a lot of them involved props, or at least they could involve props.
Yes.
I liked to go like all out with these. There was one in particular.
Gabe really likes his props.
I do. I really do. There was one in particular that I'm sure Jeff remembers.
So sorry. Gabe is the Carrot Top of DMs. You can edit that out. Sorry.
I know you meant well, Jeff, but I don't know how to take that.
Take it in the best way possible? I don't know. Go on with your story.
Okay. So one of the puzzles in particular involved the players there was a pit or something they had to get across, but in order to get across, there was like a pair of boots of levitation. But the problem was the boots of levitation accidentally got mixed up with all these other pairs of boots that looked identical. And so there were like 12 boots or something like that. There were like 6 left boots and 6 right boots. 2 of them were the boots of teleport or boots of levitation or whatever. The rest were not. They were just nothing. So what the players had to do was they had to physically try on these quote unquote boots I say quote unquote boots because what I was using for these were paper grocery bags.
Yeah.
So I had a series of paper grocery bags. They were all numbered. And then like they would say like whether there was a left boot or a right boot. So then the players had to try on in real time, the boots in various pairs and then say the command word while they were trying on the different combinations.
I remember the twist to this one. It was the command word could be said like you could turn it upside down and it was a different word. Oh, that's like that.
I think you're right.
Because I remember, we tried on all the boots in every combination and like said the word and nothing would happen.
Yeah, because I didn't say the command word. I handed them a piece of paper with the command word written on it.
There was a command word, like it was written on a piece of paper. I think sorry, spoilers, everybody.
Spoilers for this adventure from like 15 years ago that is out of print.
But yeah, it was like if you turned it upside down or something, it was a different word. And so like we had to go through and try on all the boots again with the different word.
Yeah. Yeah, those were fun. Some of them were like really kind of difficult to adjudicate. There were ones where like there would basically be like a minesweeper field and then the DM had to constantly be like referencing the thing they had printed out and then referencing the thing in the magazine. And it was like a really difficult. There was another time where the players they had like a big one of those like puzzles where they have a bunch of pieces and they have to fit them all in a certain shape. But the thing is, like, the way the adventure was printed, the shapes didn't actually fit together the way they were. So, like, that one I had to just scrap it because it didn't actually work. But these were really, really fun adventures, and they would always give you some sort of a challenge, some sort of an obstacle on top of the obstacle. Like, there was one where the players had to they were all on different balconies. They had to get to the other side of the room, but the snag was that there was a gibbering mouther in the room, which meant that the players they had to wear earmuffs so they couldn't communicate verbally.
Sure.
So they had to figure out how to get where they were going without speaking. And like that's a neat way to make a challenge harder.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So, just an idea for puzzles, try and come up with things like that require your players to actually do things at the table that would make the challenge hard. Like it might be a straightforward challenge if they were able to communicate or move around or whatever. But if you can give them some sort of an additional handicap, preferably one that the players have to abide by as well, that could make, I know this isn't really asking about how to make a puzzle memorable, but if you're looking for a way to make a puzzle memorable, that's the way to do it.
Mm-hmm. And I think making the puzzle more real like that, like, you know, more interactive, might make a difficult puzzle a little easier to solve. Just because, like, when you're trying to imagine a puzzle in a tabletop game and you don't have a way to visualize it, that can make it that much harder. Because like, you're gonna miss something because you literally cannot see it. So if you like, you know, you might even if the DM describes it over and over and over again, you might not be, you know, understanding one little detail that they're trying to, you know, give to you.
Sure.
So if there's a way to give props and stuff like that, they might be able, like the flipping the, you know, the thing upside down. You know, like something like that, you wouldn't be as easy to know to do or to think to do if you didn't actually have that physical prop.
Yeah.
So that could be a way to make it a little bit easier. Like, you know, the hint that you give them could be a physical item that, you know, has something to do with the puzzle.
There you go. And yeah, that sort of thing can help players figure something out they wouldn't have necessarily. Mm-hmm. Because if there's a physical prop, one of the players who got stumped, you know, 5 minutes in, he might be looking at the physical prop while the other players are discussing it, and he might have one of those like eureka moments where he's like, "Oh my goodness, if you flip this thing upside down." You know.
Yeah. Well, you're like, if you're just fiddling with something absentmindedly, you might see it in a completely different way, and that's usually how you get unstuck when you're trying to solve a puzzle you can't do.
Right.
Seeing it differently.
Yeah.
Our next question comes from Nicholas P. Hi, Nick. Sorry if that was creepy.
A little bit.
This was on email. What do you feel about campaigns having plot twists that make the game longer?
So I would say like all things, it is a matter of whether it is done well or done poorly.
Yeah.
And really this is kind of just like with any kind of writing, especially. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a way to do it right and there's a way to do it wrong. If you put in a plot twist that makes the game longer. If the players like it, they won't think of it as, oh, that plot twist was just there to make the game longer. They'll think, oh man, that plot twist was really cool because we got more game out of it.
Sure, yeah.
But then if you do it poorly, then they're going to be like, oh, well, that plot twist didn't actually add anything. It just made the game longer.
Right. They might look at that plot twist and be like, I don't even want to. I just can't even right now.
Yeah.
It might not interest them. Like if you don't actually hook them with the twist, it's not going to be interesting enough to actually, they might just be like, let's just call it a game.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, who wants to stop playing?
I'm of course reminded of in the Age of Worms, ding, where in the first adventure, which I've talked about many, many times, the Whispering Cairn, the players go through this really cool dungeon. They get to the end of the dungeon and there's a locked door, and then a ghost shows up and he says, hey, I'll get you through this door. The lever's on the other side. But before I can do that, I need you to go and find my bones and bury them with my family's bones. Mm-hmm. And of course, Jay was like, oh, okay, yeah, we do it. We do it and we come back. Now what happens? And I'm like, no. That's half the adventure. So like that was a plot twist that added a lot to the adventure because that introduces more NPCs. Mm-hmm. It gives you a social interaction, gives you a couple combats. And so it actually gets you more invested in the adventure and gets you more invested in the overarching campaign because that's where the like hook for the rest of the campaign comes in. And so, you could very much look at that and say, well, that's just there to pad out the adventure, mm-hmm. which, I mean, that argument could be made, but I think it's one that's done very well. So as a result, I don't think it's just there to pad out the adventure. I think it's there because that's part of the adventure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's there for a purpose.
Yeah. So it, like I said, it's all about how you do it, how well how well you integrate it, and so on. One thing that, of course, comes to mind is like there's been certain video games where you go through the game and then you get to what you believe to be the final boss. You kill the final boss and then you find out, oh, he's not the final boss. The final boss is this other guy. Go kill him instead.
Yeah, it's this guy I've never met before.
Yeah,
or if it's a JRPG, it's like some weird, like
some eldritch abomination that created the universe and is the embodiment of death. Final Fantasy IX. Yeah, no. Final Fantasy IX is a great game, but like you beat the final boss, who for all intents and purposes should be the final boss. You beat him, and then this other guy shows up literally out of nowhere. Just for one encounter, and then the game is over. And it's like, who was that guy? What did he have to do with the rest of the game? The answer is nothing. And why did we have to fight him? The answer is because it's Square Enix and they needed to give you some, space flea from nowhere to fight at the last second.
You have to fight in a void against some,
it is a literal void that you're fighting this guy in.
It's always in a void.
I know. I have similar issues with, I've told you, Jeff, about my issues with Final Fantasy X. I have a lot of issues with Final Fantasy X, but in particular, I feel like the actual final boss of that game, I feel like should have just been cut out entirely. He's not mentioned until literally the last couple hours of the game.
I can't even think of what it is. I don't even really remember the last boss of the game. I remember the last parts of the game.
Yeah, so like, I won't get into any. I'll try not to get into any spoilers, but like,
there is some spoilers.
The whole game is you're trying to stop this giant monster that is destroying, that is going around and killing people all over the world, and then at like within the last little story point of the game, you find out that even if you did kill that giant monster, then blah 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 would just create a new one, and you're like, well, wait a minute, who's blah blah blah, and why do I care about who blah 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 is? And then
why did nobody mention blah
exactly,
blah blah?
Why did nobody mention it? And then you got to go inside the giant monster into a literal void and fight blah blah blah. And then the whole thing is the actual fight with blah 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 is you cannot lose that fight.
Oh, it's the final fight in Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah,
where it's like
it's not as short and sweet. It's like, oh, okay, he just healed himself again. All right. Oh, he just healed me again. Okay. I guess I'll keep fighting.
Yeah.
It's stupid, and there's a lot of issues I have with that story, and I think that cutting that out and making the focus of the game into the main character's issues with his father would have been a much better way to end that game. Anyway, that's another talk for another day. I've already gone on too many tangents for this episode.
This is the tangent.
This is the tangent episode. I don't think I'm going to call it the tangent episode, but I don't know. Anyway, got anything else for this one, or is that about it?
I mean, basically anything that makes you play more game. If everyone's having fun, and that just means an excuse for you to keep playing, that's a good idea.
Sure.
As long as it's done well enough that it's not just sort of like I don't feel like it.
Yeah. People never complain about the length of a game when they're enjoying it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's times when we've had sessions that have gone for 8 to 10 hours or something crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's usually that's usually because of the length of combat or something like that.
Right,
but there have been ones where we're just been really into what's going on that we just kind of keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we keep playing because we enjoy playing it. So, yeah.
So any twist that you get, you can put in there. Go for it. If it fits, or if it's just a way to start a new story, even if it doesn't fit with what happened, it might just be the players finish that campaign, but want to just kind of go into a next one and maybe go into epic levels or something.
Sure.
Or maybe you only played to 13th level. You want to keep going.
Yeah. I remember when I was playing as Ichi, I won't do the sound effects. I already did it earlier. But when I was playing as Ichi, the campaign reached a logical conclusion. We were all about 20th level, something like that. And then one of the guys in the group, he moved away. And so we were okay, well, I guess we just won't play those characters anymore. But then I think maybe it's Chris, one of us was let's play those characters a little more. So we played one more adventure with Chris DMing, and it did feel like it was just kind of making the game longer. I mean, nothing against Chris. The adventure was fine, but the characters had reached the conclusion of their story.
Sure.
And so...
Yeah, that's a good point.
Extending it further wasn't really necessary.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. Yeah, so if it feels like there's not a whole lot more to do with the story or with the characters, if it feels like the characters have reached their end, if that's what you want to do with those characters, then maybe you should just kind of let the campaign end. And I mean, I guess you could always just make new characters and start a new campaign.
And heck, it might be a little awkward, but it's never bad to ask your players, hey, how do you feel about the plot? How do you feel about where it's going?
Yeah.
If the players feel this, ever since that twist a couple sessions ago, I feel like we're just kind of going around in circles, then maybe find some way to just quickly wrap it up.
Yeah, sure.
Well, that'll just about do it for today. If anybody wanted to submit items or questions, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, a running list of questions asked, or important links, or if you want to download the episode, go to our website, interpartyconflict.com. And you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict, or our subreddit at reddit.com/r/interpartyconflict. We're also on Twitter at InPartyConflict, because there weren't enough spaces for InterPartyConflict.
Sure.
And we're on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube. Please give us a rating, give us a review, subscribe. We have a PayPal donate button on our blog. Mm-hmm. Anything that you can do, even if it's just telling another person about us, anything you can do would be very, very appreciated.
Yes, thank you.
Now, Jeff, would you like to tell the listeners about FriendQuest?
Yes, FriendQuest is a YouTube channel of ours that Gabe and I have played a couple D&D games. We plan to play a few more in the future. Mm-hmm. And I also have some plans to play some games by myself and throw them up there, too.
Sure.
It's just something to watch if you like playing video games or watching video games or whatever. Yeah. Or if you just, I don't know, really like D&D or something.
Sure.
But... who really likes D&D?
I know.
So
many rules.
So yeah, just we did the old arcade games on there. So
Tower of Doom and Shadow over Mystara.
Yep. So head over there, give us a thumbs up.
A thumbs up, give us a subscription.
Yep. Anything is appreciated.
Yeah. All right, and the podcast's music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hackers RPG. So, Jeff, until next time, what should our listeners do?
Always use your cooldowns.
There you go. All right. Well, we got a 1 week cooldown on this. So let's use it now.
Bye.